Welcome back to Conservative Conversations. I'm your host, Reid.
And I'm Frank.
Today we're going to be talking about the House holding Anthony Blinken in contempt, the looming debt ceiling battle, and more. So let's get into it. And before we get started, listeners, I want to remind you to go subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, leave a rating and review, and also you can subscribe to our YouTube channel for the audio there, leave a like and a comment. And also, you can visit our Red Circle page to leave us a donation to support our show.
Well, to get right into some news that I found very interesting, I came across a Washington Examiner article that's talking about how, I guess, Representative from the House, Michael McCall, out of Texas, who's the chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, he wants to and is threatening to hold Secretary of State Antony Blinken in contempt of Congress because there's this memo that circulated in mid-July of 2021, and supposedly, because they haven't seen the memo, supposedly it has like 24 signatures from U.S. embassy members in Kabul that was sent to the State Department. And, you know, they're basically saying, it's called a dissent cable. And they were basically, had seen the plans for the withdrawal from Afghanistan, and they were reacting to it. And they were trying to warn at the time, you know, that this wasn't a good idea and that Kabul would fall basically as soon as America pulled out. And one of the things that we do know from, I guess, some of the reporting and some of the rumor around this is that they were already saying that there was a huge uptick in special immigrant visas, you know, because there were all these people, foreigners, working with them over there who would want to come, who would want to be safe, who would seek the safety and security of the United States if America was going to pull out of their bases and everything like that over there. So it's just really interesting. The State Department has told the Congress, I assume, has told somebody, that the original dissent letter was something like 4 pages long. And I guess the government has redacted so much of it that only about 1 page out of the 4 has been made available, even to the Congress, even though they've been requesting it for quite a while, a long time. And they're basically refusing to turn it over. So what I find really interesting about this is, you know, we've sort of had this discussion before, and, you know, I don't remember how many episodes ago it was, but we knew that the House would be having these hearings, these oversight hearings and everything, and especially on this Afghanistan topic, and we were wondering if anything good would come of this, or if this would be like things we've seen before in the past. So I found it very interesting to think back, if you think how many, what would you call it, like executive branch people have been held in contempt of Congress in the last few years. There have been a few. There's been, I mean, the biggest ones that stand out to me, I think I even mentioned before. I mean, I maybe didn't mention Eric Holder, but I definitely mentioned Lois Lerner. Those are 2 characters who have been tried for contempt of Congress before.
Yeah, I definitely remember Eric Holder from the Obama administration.
Yes, and he was held in contempt of Congress for not turning over documents regarding the Fast and Furious scandal, where they had, like, I don't know, there was some kind of government operation where they were, like, selling guns to the cartels or something like this. And
yeah, something like that.
Yeah, and some guns...
they ended up being used to kill American citizens.
Yeah, but they, like, lost track of the guns for a while, and then they ended up... Some border patrol agents got murdered by them or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's been a while back, you know, Obama administration. But, and then the Lois Lerner thing I'm much more familiar with, you know, because she had actively participated and, like, sort of led an IRS, what would you say, sort of like agenda to, like, keep conservative and Tea Party organizations from receiving 501c3 tax-exempt status. Yeah. And if you remember, nothing happened to either of them.
Right.
And I'm sure I talked about that before. But something I don't know how many people really know is that under Trump, he had some people who were tried for contempt of Congress. Well, he had some people put up for contempt of Congress, but there were 4 actually, but only 2 have actively been prosecuted or are going to be prosecuted, have yet to be prosecuted. But if you remember those, there's one that's been convicted so far, and that's Steve Bannon.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's another one who is yet to be tried and convicted, but that's going to be Peter Navarro.
Okay.
The other 2 were Mark Meadows and Dan Scavino, and nothing happened to them. Just like Holder and Lerner.
Right.
Nothing happened to Meadows and Scavino. But Bannon and Navarro are like 2 people out of the last 7 people. This will be the 7th, of course, will be Blinken. And he's going to be the first from Biden's administration to face these kinds of charges. So it's just like I was saying before. I mean, do you think anything will come of it? I doubt that Biden's Department of Justice will seek charges against Anthony Blinken.
Right, that's what I was going to say. I'm pretty sure the DOJ would still have to follow up with the charges, even if the Congress recommends them or whatever. But yeah, exactly what you said. I don't see Biden's DOJ following through on it. It's a Secretary of State. That's like one of the most important offices in the executive branch.
Who's Secretary of State? Blinken?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I don't see anything happening to him.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good for the House Republicans to try to uncover this info, but ultimately, no, I don't see too much happening.
I don't think anything will happen either, but it's just one of those things because, Biden has claimed that he has the most transparent government in all of history, or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, why would they not turn over a simple 4-page document like this? They obviously want to hide it and redact it, and they don't want it out there. And it's like, it must be pretty damning,
Right.
So hopefully we'll get that document, or we'll see the possible jail time for Blinken would be up to a year, which ain't going to happen. But hey, be interesting to see, wouldn't it?
No.
I'd like to see somebody other than just Trump's people, actually charged.
So one thing this is sort of a news story for me, are they saying that Blinken was told not to go through with the pullout in Afghanistan, but did anyway? And that's what they're trying to, maybe charge him for negligence or something like that, or not?
No, he's had a subpoena since...
I mean, I didn't mean charge him for negligence, but...
They have issued him the Congress has issued him a subpoena.
Right, and he's
since
not
I don't know when. And he's supposed to turn over these documents.
Right, they're not.
Yeah, and one of them is this dissent letter from the 24 embassy members saying this is going to be a disaster. Essentially, I mean, we don't know what it says.
Okay. So they're holding him in contempt because he's not turning
He won't procure... he won't remit the documents that they have subpoenaed. And subpoena comes from a Latin phrase that means under penalty or under punishment.
Right, yeah.
So they basically just want to, by holding in contempt of Congress, they just want to enforce the subpoena. They want to add the punishment part.
Right. I gotcha. I just missed exactly what they were looking for from Anthony Blinken.
They want these documents that are going to say Biden screwed the pooch.
Right. Yeah, because they believe those papers suggest...
Well, it should be the Biden administration, but you know what I mean. I'm speaking loosely.
But then they believe those papers which suggest that he was heavily told it was a bad idea not to do it.
Well, Biden even pretty much said himself when asked of this letter of dissent or whatever, he just said flippantly, he said, I get advice from everybody.
Right, okay.
And the buck stops with me. Mm-hmm. That's how he's responded to this. So they don't care. They're just going to ignore it like they never got this letter.
Right. Yeah, hopefully we'll get some more info out of it. That is interesting.
I'd love to read this 4-page letter because I bet they detailed some pretty good things.
Right.
don't do this because of blah, blah, blah. And we all just want to see what reasons they gave and shed some light on why the government's hiding it.
Mm-hmm. Well, it'd be interesting to know if, they could find out who, was the author of this document and maybe get them to come forward or something.
Well, it's internal within whatever DOD, I would think. So even if they did know the guy, I doubt he can just turn over government documents like that. It probably has to be turned over. Because this is going from, Secretary of State to Congress. And then Congress would be able to redact or publish it.
Sure. Gotcha.
But I doubt somebody could do that. Just say, here's the document.
Come, to a hearing and answer some questions.
Well, I bet they could. I mean, there's a reason we know, some of the content. Huh?
I said some of the info that we do know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, gotcha then. We'll see what happens with that. Because we definitely talked about before how disastrous this withdrawal from Afghanistan was, and
it'd be nice to hold somebody accountable.
Right.
I mean, I'd rather hold Biden.
Sure.
Hopefully we can hold his administration accountable in the next election. But it'd be nice to see some people demoted or something. I don't know.
Right, and
fined, put in jail. I mean, Americans died. 13 of them.
Right. Yeah, and I like how you pointed out that hopefully we can hold the administration accountable in the next election, because that's how it's supposed to be done here in our country. It's one way of holding our elected representatives accountable is by voting for other people, which is how democracy works, even though the left is always talking about how democracy is under attack by the right wing, whether it be with trying to adjust election laws or reporting on news, actual facts and stuff.
Right, or even just the First Amendment. I mean, the First Amendment's under attack by the left.
Yep.
And they're the ones who like to say democracy dies in darkness, and then they create the darkness.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, we'll move on to my first topic. It's not really any easy transition, but it's sort of a local story. From Columbus, Ohio, recently there has been quite the number of shootings just over the weekend as we record. There were 3 separate events within a few hours of each other, all on the same night. And what's interesting about this incident is the Columbus City Police Chief Elaine Bryant had a press conference, and she made an interesting comment that I was able to catch hold of from the local news. And one of the things she said during her press conference while talking about these events was, why is everybody walking around with a weapon? And that stood out to me because it's as if she believes the offense being committed is just having a weapon. Not that there are people either irresponsibly or criminally using the weapons they do have in these instances. And, that's a local example of some of this gun violence talk, where the issue is not really about the violence, it's the usage of guns during these incidents and stuff. And I guess it stood out to me since it's a local story this time. Usually this is the kind of stuff we hear from police chiefs from, New York or Los Angeles and these other big liberal cities, but it's definitely happening here in our own backyard. And if I could answer the police chief, I would say a lot of people are walking around with weapons. Some who shouldn't have them because they're criminals, and others who are allowed to have them because they believe they need to defend themselves because there's been such a rise in violent crime in the city. But again, she makes the problem not of the people committing the crimes, but the use of the firearm itself.
Well, we've seen this before.
Right.
We've definitely seen this before. I mean, when that guy drove his car through that crowd at Christmas time or whatever.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they said it was a car. The car did it.
Right.
I mean, the Jeep just took over. It just did it all on its own. But, you know, the gun shot the guy.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't believe that somebody held it or pulled the trigger or anything. You know,
right.
The guns do it. So how dare people have the weapons? And I think that is an interesting point because, I mean, you see this. I've kind of dwelled in this before, maybe not here on the channel, but, you know, you see this with, like, prisoners, for example. Mm-hmm. You take them in, and they take away their shoestrings and their belts. They can't have belts. They can't have anything that they can hang themselves with,
mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
But if you look, I mean, anything can be a weapon.
Uh-huh.
And what do they do in prison? They turn anything they can get. They turn a razor, a little safety razor. Uh-huh. They melt it down somehow. I don't know how they do it. They turn anything you give them into a weapon. Yeah. They're always shivving each other and shivving the guards, and they can turn anything into a weapon.
Right. Yeah.
And anything could be a weapon. If somebody wanted to harm themselves, they don't need a shoestring or a belt. They could use the wall, for instance, the floor.
Their pants.
Yeah, whatever. You just bash somebody into something. Bash yourself. I mean, anything can cause harm. Right. Absolutely anything. I bet I could hurt somebody with the cap to a ballpoint pen, you know? So, a paper clip. So it is sort of ridiculous to not see that we do have the right to defend ourselves, because mm-hmm. that's what it comes down to. And that the fear is not the weapon. The fear is the intent behind the person who's wielding the weapon, what they intend to do with that.
Right. I tried to look up some stats on like homicides in the city, and I did find one recent article that said there's been around 60 homicides this year, and it seems like way more. I know there's certainly been way more instances of shootings, whether or not they've resulted in homicide, but actual homicides, I'm surprised it's not higher, but there has certainly been a rise in crimes involving firearms, which is a problem, but the problem's not necessarily the firearm, it's the people committing the crimes with them.
Right. I mean, I know it has gotten bad. I mean, it's been bad up here. You know, I work down in southern Columbus.
Right.
And we even just had an incident the other night. I'm not sure if it's the same night you're talking about, but we had an incident on our property where shots were fired. Now, I don't think they shot anybody. Mm-hmm. I don't think they harmed anybody. I think they just shot up in the air to sort of scare somebody off. Right. I don't know. I wasn't there that night. But it's really hit home. I mean, mm-hmm. the crime seems to be rampant almost.
Right. I have one of the local news' app on my phone, and I get notifications, and it's almost like every day, if not every other day, reports of a shooting overnight, or even sometimes in the middle of the day, in the morning. It's getting crazy. And I don't know our police chief's extensive career record, but I do know from looking it up, she's relatively new. She was hired to Columbus City Police in, I believe, June of 2021. And I believe this is after the previous police chief resigned over a couple instances of police-involved shootings. But before she came here to Columbus, she was the deputy chief of police for Detroit City Police. And we all know how well Detroit is going. Now, again, she was the deputy police, so I don't know how much authority she had over how things were ran in Detroit. But I imagine she had at least some say, and it almost seems like she's bringing the same thing here to Columbus, because I don't think crime's gotten better over the past few years.
Do you know what her political affiliations are?
No. I mean, I can only make assumptions. But I don't know if it's like public info what party she's registered for? I imagine somebody could find that.
I've just tried to quickly look, and I can't really see anything except, obviously I would think by these comments that she leans left.
Right.
And the only other thing that I've seen come up in the first couple of Google searches is something about a coalition of Ohio Democratic mayors. Was she used to be a mayor?
No, before police chief here, she was deputy police in Detroit.
Yeah, see, I don't know. I don't know what I'm reading. But this says something about saying the legislature and Governor Mike DeWine are taking Ohio in the wrong direction, blah, blah, blah. So, I don't know. Hopefully she's not a conservative. Hopefully she's not a conservative out saying stuff like that.
Right. Well, basically, like we were saying, I would assume that she's not.
Yeah.
Given her focus on, tools instead of criminals.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I had any specific point other than the sort of stuff we've talked about before. How like Democrats and leftists don't want to focus on the criminals and the person. They want to focus on the use of the gun itself. Meanwhile, they have bodyguards and security
Absolutely.
with weapons to protect themselves.
Yeah.
But I guess that's all, and it's definitely I wouldn't say eye-opening, but I guess, like I said at the top of the story, more home hitting since it's right here in our own city, our own police chief who pushing this kind of narrative.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens. It's they just got 30 some odd new recruits out of the academy for the summer crime wave that they're anticipating.
Well, I also heard here locally that there's some kind of new app or something about reporting gunshots and how, I wasn't familiar with it and I just heard it on the radio, but they were saying it has something to do with shots fired and something about the police would be alerted through this app or whatever it is faster than people calling in to 911.
That wouldn't surprise me because they already have a system that's called Shot Spotter.
Oh, yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah.
But they just maybe added a bunch of new neighborhoods to it or something like that. I'm not sure how it works, but...
Yeah, and I don't know exactly how it works, but there's some kind of like device that's planted various places to the city.
Yeah, I guess that's it. And they just added a bunch of new neighborhoods, I guess, so...
Yeah, and they're designed to recognize the sound of gunfire and send out an alert. So that's pretty cool if they're now able to get like a direct alert to the officers, because I don't know how it worked. Maybe dispatch was notified first or something like that. But that'd be good to see if it's helped provide a more immediate response.
That would certainly be a good thing.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess that's all I got for that topic.
All right. Well, if we're headed over to my other topic, then it's going to be about the looming debt ceiling fight, which looks like it's going to be a real knockout dragout. Because from an article I was reading, again, in the Washington Examiner, I've seen that basically both parties are at a non-starter.
Right.
Biden has said they're not going to negotiate if the debt ceiling's not raised. And basically they don't want spending to be touched. They just want to keep on rolling.
Yeah, they just want to raise the debt limit without any other conditions.
Yes.
Just raise it.
And the Republicans are saying that they will only vote for a clean bill, which to them means whatever the spending's going to be has to come with cuts to spending. So if you want to raise it by X, you have to lower the spending by Y or whatever. That's the only way they're going to go for an increase.
Right. And I believe the House Republicans did pass their bill out of the House recently.
Yeah, that's what's interesting. And part of this article is talking about how Mike Lee,
From the
the
Senate?
senator, from Utah, he is trying to help shore up McCarthy's backing in the Senate.
That's good.
Yeah, and he's saying that he has at least 41 signatures out of the 49. You know, because it's like 51 to 49 right now in the House. I mean, in the Senate, excuse me. And he's saying that he has had at least 41 Republican senators sign this agreement that they're going to back McCarthy and his budget. But that leaves like 8 Republican senators who haven't committed, and they said they haven't for political reasons, and they might later. We don't know. But with at least 41, they will not be able to get their is it the filibuster? I would say so. Yeah. I don't think that they can pass this, basically, whatever their version of the bill or whatever. What has something to do with, the Senate, they do this debate first on a bill that's brought onto the floor.
Right.
And to be able to do cloture where they close debate or whatever and just move on to where they all vote on the bill, they have to have a majority, like 60 votes or whatever, to be able to shut down basically the argument period. And with these 41 Republicans saying that they will back McCarthy, that means that they're not going to be able to get over that filibuster rule. So, I mean, that's at least is a good thing. But still, if you do the math and if you really think about this, what do you see? Because I see shutdown coming, and we've seen it before. I mean, do you remember the last time there was a shutdown? I want to say it was under Obama. The sequester. Remember the sequester? Everybody got sequestered.
I think there's been one since then.
There might have been. I don't recall.
But yeah,
maybe
definitely
under Obama. I mean, under Trump, excuse me. I don't remember.
I think they're in his earlier part of the administration. I might be wrong, but I feel like there is one.
I feel like there was one too, because I remember the parks are always something that gets shut down first. And I remember him signing away his presidential salary to the parks. And I think it was during that shutdown or whatever. But so anyway, my only point, though, about that is that this has been done before. We've seen the shutdown. It comes, and it's usually when Republicans hold the House of Representatives. So I sort of see that coming.
Yeah, I definitely think that it might. I feel like there's going to be some kind of deal done at the last minute to avoid a shutdown, because I think it's more than just a shutdown this time, because it's not just the regular budget. This is with the debt ceiling too, which I don't think is always an issue when they're doing the budget. Because one of the things they keep talking about is, it'd be terrible if America defaulted on its debt.
Yeah, I know Janet Yellen just talked about some of that.
And we don't pay our creditors or whatever. So I think because of that, there'll probably be some 11th hour deal that they'll come up with, and probably won't be good for anybody except them. Yeah.
But I hope not. I mean, I feel like that usually happens even if there is a shutdown. They usually end up... I mean, that's one of the things that went through my mind. Because if you think about sort of the ebb and flow of the government and these situations, what they usually do is it sort of forces them to cut back.
Right.
They have to start laying off, some of these subcontractors that they hire and some of these non-essential employees and shutting down these non-essential services and stuff like that. And so it's sort of the conservative way of forcing the current government into cutting back.
Right.
But then after they make their deal and they get their checks signed and everything and the money gets flowing again, they probably spend even more.
Right.
And they buy more office furniture even though they already had office furniture. And they buy new employees even though they already had some good employees.
Well, that's the way it works. They always... they get $1 million for this department, and next year that department comes back and says, "Oh, we spent all of our money. You got to give us more.
We need $2 million."
Yeah. Can't you see? That wasn't enough because we blew it all on this fancy furniture in these offices that nobody's in.
If you think about how these federal employees go, they go, "Oh, you called me non-necessary or whatever. I want my back pay and all this." And of course they get it. And they probably get a small raise for... having been put in this situation. We know that hurt. Oh, here's here's a nickel, whatever. So I don't even know how much it really helps, but it is a sort of, it's sort of force, isn't it? Sort of a forceful way to like at least get your point across. I don't know.
Well, I think that Biden does not look that great in this situation, because at least at this point the House Republicans have put forward what they're offering in the negotiation that Biden doesn't even want to have, and hopefully the average person can see that it's at least the House has made their attempt, and now Joe Biden and the White House doesn't even want to make any kind of negotiation.
Well,
that's not how it works.
I find that truly crazy too, because remember, he's supposed to be Mr. Moderate. And it seems to me like the people who really should be wiggling is him, is the executive. Excuse me. And, these have been tough times that we've all just come through. Yeah. The pandemic and, yada, yada, all this stuff. All the shipping issues and people being laid off work for months and months and, all this stuff. And inflation going up through the roof. You think he'd be like, okay, just some common sense home economics.
Right.
We should pull back a little. Yes, and I'm Mr. Moderate, so how about I shake hands with the Republicans? Let's do good government here, and let's play nice. Everybody play nice.
Right. He's one. I don't have any exact quotes because we're just coming to me while we're talking. But one of the big things he was talking about when he was inaugurated and around that time was unity. He's supposed to be the unity president.
Yeah.
Where's the unity on trying to negotiate this budget and the debt ceiling issue?
Yeah.
There isn't any.
Well, and what's crazy is, of course, you hear the left use the phrase, I've seen it, I think it's in this article, that the Republicans are trying to hold the country hostage.
Right. I've heard that too. And that's silly, especially talking about how the House Republicans have put forward their offer. How are they holding the country hostage when the Biden administration is not willing to put forward any counter offer other than, no, we're not doing this. You're going to do it my way or nothing.
Yeah. Well, and I would argue, who's really holding the country hostage? I mean, you've got Janet Yellen, who's a dingbat, up there saying, we're going to go insolvent. We're not going to meet our creditors, what you were just talking about. We're not going to be able to pay our bills.
Right.
But how does that even make any sense? Because you got the Federal Reserve, and if you remember Ben Bernanke's famous quote, I mean, the government can never go bankrupt because we can always print more money, he said. It's probably one of the most famous quotes in the modern age. We can always just print more money.
Right.
So I don't understand. What kind of catch-22 are we in here, and who's really holding the government hostage?
Right. Well, you also have Chuck Schumer, the leader of the Senate for the Democrats and the whole Senate. He's immediately said that this House bill is dead on arrival. So they're not even willing to work with them. So it's
going to be the House. Yeah. They've got the votes.
Yep.
They've got the purse strings. And nobody wants to work with anybody.
Right. I mean, it's, for the naive and the ignorant, I can see why somebody might believe that it's the House holding people hostage because of that. But it's not. They put forward the offer.
Well, I think it's important to remember that the American people gave us this House.
Yeah, that's right.
This is the American the American people's House, and they elected that government that's in there.
The House of Representatives, they represent the people who put them there.
That, they basically have a charter to curtail and check the executive as well as the Senate, but mostly the executive, okay? And we gave back the power of the purse strings to the Republicans.
Right.
So basically, I want to see them do good, and I don't really care. They say this stuff, all doom and gloom, pushing Granny off the hill. Social Security is going to be canceled because of the Republicans, and it's like, I just want to see it done. Just shut down the damn government. It doesn't hurt that bad. We've been through it before. Forget it. If they can't pay our bills, Well, then there goes the government. We'll create a new government that can pay the bills.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely sort of a contentious issue, and even though I still think a last minute deal will be made, hopefully something better than that will be done, and I think the Republican
Well, I wouldn't
House
be
might win.
surprised. I mean, I'm not an advisor to Joe Biden.
Sure.
But he's welcome to hear this.
Sure.
And I think he should cave. Go
Yeah.
and shake McCarthy's hand.
Right.
Find the wiggle room that they're offering.
Mm-hmm.
Because like you say, they all do these deals. They're all crooked.
Yeah.
They're all going to get their kickbacks and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't they just find the points that they can agree on and stop the charade?
Right. Yeah.
Just my advice.
Yep. It remains to be seen what's going to happen. We got, according to Janet Yellen, we got until June 1st or something like that. So less than a month.
Well, and she's never been wrong.
No. But is that all you got on that?
Inflation was transitory. Yeah, that's all I got.
All right. Well, my last topic, and again, no direct relation to anything we've already been talking about, but segregation's back. We thought we got rid of that 60 years ago or so, but nope, it's back. According to Fox News and a couple other places I've seen, there's a report in the New England Journal of Medicine that suggests that medical school should be segregated for the benefit of black people, because historically medical schooling is colonialist and racist and stuff like that, and this is certainly not the first example of academia trying to bring back segregation. Over the past several years, there's been several colleges creating black-only dormitory spaces. I remember seeing stuff like this going back at least almost 10 years or so. And, when I heard about this, medical school thing, one of the first kind of comments that popped into my head was, wouldn't a Democrat from 1920s love to be alive today? Because it's, the same, even though the Democrats will tell you the party switched at some point. Mm-hmm. It's the same Democrat Party who is wanting to separate, people of color into their own areas. And if you can separate them in their own areas, their own medical school courses, you can basically control them.
Well, I think that's such a good point. Did you have anything more to say on that?
Sorta. Because it's not only that it doesn't, remind me of old Democrats who used to support segregation.
The Jim Crow Democrats of the South, yeah.
Right. They still seem to be in favor of it today. But the other thing it makes me think of, especially with this, regarding the medical schools, is, how long will it be before people don't trust their doctors and stuff anymore because of this stuff? If they're going to curtail medical school curriculum based on the fact that the students are black and they deserve special teachings, how are they supposed to, because they already want to do away with merit-based, exams and stuff into colleges.
Right.
And just, have applicants write these essays about how they're, how they want to promote social justice and stuff like that, how long until you don't want to, people don't trust their doctors because they're not sure if they actually, are competent enough to be doing what their given degree is for. But yeah, I guess that's mostly it. The fact that, it's the same Democrat Party pushing segregation in a new style.
What always has been.
Yeah.
Put lipstick on a pig and it's
right.
still a pig.
And the dumbing down of, education in this particular instance, medical school. And it's going to lead to a lot of problems. I think.
Well, it is. I mean, if you're ready for me to jump in,
Yep.
I've got some great points. I mean, we've already seen it. Like you said, it's been coming down the pike.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen it on the campuses. Yep, I truly agree with you. And one of the things I would point out about that is there are already great alternatives for, let's say, a black person who's seeking a black culture or a black campus. They have these historic black colleges.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yep.
You could seek this out for yourself. You
Yep.
could go to Tuskegee. You could go to Brown. You could go to these, you can find these spaces already there.
Yeah.
And they have these specific and historic charters. It's not really in an effort to be racist, but it's to hold up. It was founded for a certain reason. It was founded by a certain person. It was founded, with a certain charter.
Right.
And you can still go and do that. You don't have to force it into all of academia as a whole.
Right.
And we've seen this, like, if you think of why Title IX was created. Mm-hmm. And I think this is interesting. You talk about the old versus the new. Well, women had to fight for rights, right? And they had to fight for Title IX and for the ability to compete against men's sports. Because how would they ever have a chance? I mean, if you look at something like swimming, men naturally have greater lung capacity, a greater wingspan. Somebody like Michael Phelps is going to outswim even the best female swimmer.
Right.
There's tons of examples of that. And now you see it being undone with all this transgenderism, which party pushes for that?
Mm-hmm.
So we see an unpeeling of Title IX. Then I have this great article that was put out by the Daily Caller. You're not just seeing it in these places. I mean, you might call some of these, like you say, academia. Sports is sort of part of academia. It's just sort of a pastime type of thing. Mm-hmm. But there's a story out by the Daily Caller that says that the U.S. Air Force has even been trying to do this. We've seen certain ads. We've seen the military, try to appeal to, like, transgender people and girls and this type of thing. But this supposedly says that they did an experiment. They had an experimental class in the Air Force of pilots. Mm-hmm. I can't remember how many. I think it was like 20. Let me see if I can just see here really quickly. I can't find the number right now. But this article will be linked, of course. But basically, they prioritized everybody but white males. And they're even catching some flack for that. Because I think some of the specific, like, branding and literature and stuff like that was, like, actively anti-white. So
Right. Well, we've seen this before because I think it was Millie.
In Congress.
Yeah, who was...
I want to understand white rage.
Yes, exactly. Because there are reports of these new recruits into the military were being, I don't know, made to, or at least told to
read
these
basically racist literature and stuff.
Yeah, anti-white literature.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's no surprise.
Well, the interesting thing here is that it failed. It didn't do a very good job.
Of course not.
The people didn't have a very big passing rate. They thought that if they clustered these certain minority groups together in a like super concentrated class, so that there were no white influences or whatever, no white, nothing white or very limited whiteness, that they might do better. They might be a better group. They might, I don't know. Sure didn't make them better pilots, didn't make them learn any faster, didn't do it. I don't think they did very well at all. I don't remember the exact pass-fail rate. I don't know if that's even published in this article. But it does say that it didn't work and that they're catching flack for it, for not only the statistics of the class, but some of the, specific teachings and stuff like that. But one of the things that's interesting is somebody in here was interviewed, and they say it's terrible. I mean, it doesn't say their party affiliation or anything, but it says that they find it terrible because it's not merit-based.
Right.
I mean, you can't just cherry-pick who you want in these classes, and you can't just say, no, we're not going to take the white man to be the pilot because there's too many white men pilots.
Yeah, even though he's the top scoring pilot in the class.
Well, if you think about what we've thought about before, wartime situations, and I think the military sign-up rates, I don't know.
They're way down.
Of course they're way down. And you don't want to take people? I wonder why they're down. Mm-hmm. No white men. We just want gay,
people.
black transvestites or whatever. I don't even know. But it doesn't make sense. So you see the merit totally evaporating out of everything.
Right.
It's like affirmative action or nothing. No action.
Right. Well, and it's one of the most I don't know what word to use. It's sort of upsetting to watch, but Steven Crowder does his Change My Mind segments.
Yeah.
He usually goes to the college campuses, sometimes other places, and tries to just have like a discussion with people on whatever the given topic is. And in one case, he was at maybe Austin University, something like that, some university in Texas, and it was a Change My Mind segment on affirmative action. And he was talking to this young black girl, who I could not actually say whether she knew if she was admitted to the school because she had good grades, which she did. She did a lot of extracurricular stuff in high school and everything like that. Or if she was admitted because she was black. And that's kind of upsetting to know because, wouldn't you want these students to know that they
earned it?
Yeah, they earned it and that their achievements mean something?
You think it would do more for like your ego, like
right.
a healthy ego,
right?
Because you'd think, hey, I achieved this, I deserve to be here. Because it actually really is a good point, because the Harvard example, they just got sued. I can't remember exactly what happened, but by Asians. Remember saying that they basically don't allow Asians into Harvard or whatever. I can't remember the exact particulars around that case, but that's if you think about a prestigious university or school or position or whatever, and you think, hey, we're going to put the black guy here because he's black. It's exactly like you're saying. Wouldn't that man, rather think, well, I'm here because I'm the most qualified. I earned this.
Yeah.
That would be better for your ego more than just, I deserve this, the entitlement.
Right.
I deserve this because I'm black. That doesn't even make logical sense. And we're talking about collegiate study, for goodness sakes. Try taking a logics course, somebody.
Right. So yeah, I believe there's supposed to be some affirmative action cases before the Supreme Court, but it was that clip with Steven Crowder and that young girl talking about this affirmative action. When I saw it, it was sad. Even Steven Crowder, expressed to her that he found it kind of sad to know that, because she doesn't know whether she's there because she's black or if it was because she did everything right to deserve to be there.
Did she care? Did she seem truly interested, or was she just flippant about it?
No, she seemed to care about that. I'll just see if I can find the video and put in the show notes for people.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
But to bring it back to this whole new segregation, it's well, I shouldn't really call it new because it's not new.
Right.
But I think it's going to further degrade the academia, and again, in regards to the medical schools, I think it's going to degrade the I don't know what the quality of your doctors.
Yeah.
At a certain point. Maybe not drastically real soon, but if they continue to pick and choose these students based on their skin color or whatever, their sexual orientation, whatever it might be, you're going to get to the point where you're not going to have I would think anyway, that you're not going to have a majority of actually qualified people.
Well, and I think it's going to do a couple things too. Like, it's going to help naturally just segregate. It'll build on itself like a cancer, because
It essentially
white
already
people
is.
won't want to go see a black doctor, and black people won't want to go see a white doctor, because they'll start getting into their heads that, he doesn't give me as good of care. He doesn't understand my body as well, which the people that we would argue against, they would say, well, that's already been happening for years. That's why they're making this push or whatever to have more black doctors. But what I would argue is, if you look at the Hippocratic Oath, which all doctors have to take that stupid Hippocratic Oath, they say, do no harm.
Right.
It's not like they're out there trying to give different care to different people. And they say, oh, I'm not going to help the little black boy. I'm only going to go help the little white children.
Right.
That's preposterous.
Yeah.
And actually, a push for this, I mean, it's exactly what you're saying. You've really said something keen. It's going to degrade the whole system of medicine.
Right.
Very much.
Yeah, it's hard not to see how it would eventually. I mean, like I said, it might not...
it will take time.
Yeah, it might not happen quickly and drastically,
But we've seen how far it comes.
Yeah.
It's come, like you were saying. I mean, maybe over the past 10 years, we saw it with campuses, but now we're seeing it with everything. Women's sports, we're seeing it with doctors, we're seeing it with the Air Force, with pilots, with...
Right.
I mean, it's crazy. They say there's not enough black accountants. We need more black accountants. And it's like, oh my gosh, can't a number cruncher just... You're talking about a human calculator, for goodness sakes. What does it matter what their skin color is?
I mean, are you suggesting to me that there's a whole ton of black people out there who want to be accountants, but are...
The white man's keeping them down.
Some mysterious force or person is not letting them become accountants?
Yeah. It's the white Illuminati. And they got to create their own black Illuminati. That's what it is.
Yeah, it's definitely going to further this, anti-white and I think eventually the return of anti-black, racism.
Well, you're right. I mean,
trying to bring it back.
We're about 20 years later, and it's like we're going to live through the 60s all over again here. It's just a matter of time.
Right.
Except this time they're going to be hosing the white people and sicking the dogs on us.
Right. But hopefully more, average people will have their eyes open and become aware of this and start demanding change, whether directly or indirectly by, putting your feet and your money and your mouth where you believe it should go.
Yeah.
And hopefully avoid all of this.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's just important to hold love for your neighbor, be the best person you can be, and all of that,
Right.
I think that's the only real way to win, because the Bible says we deal not with flesh and bone. This is all spiritual,
right?
So you got to keep that in mind and just get through it best way we can.
That's right. And is that all you got?
That's all I got.
All right, that's all I got. I think that was another great conversation that we had.
Yeah, I'd say so. Some good points in there.
Right. And listeners, if you thought it was a great conversation, be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio. You can also subscribe, like, and comment on our YouTube channel. And if you want to support us directly, you can make a donation on our Red Circle page. There's a link in the show notes. We would appreciate any support you give us.
Yeah, tell a friend or tell two. And as always, thanks for listening.